Well, happy Halloween, everybody. I am back today to do something that I've done something similar before around a year ago, maybe a little over a year ago, where I talked about the major horror franchises and discussed whether they were overrated or underrated. But I'm going to do something today that I've never done before. This was incredibly difficult for me to do, which is I'm going to try and rank all of the major horror franchises, not each individual movie in those franchises, but the franchises as a whole. Like if I was going to go back today and rewatch these franchises and watch these movies, which one I would gravitate towards? What am I going to be the most interested in? What am I going to enjoy the most? And it's interesting to do this because I feel like over time my opinions have kind of shifted and changed. Certain ones not at all. But when I do this video today, I'm only going to talk about the really major ones. So if you're like, oh, he didn't talk about this like lower budget indie franchise that has like four movies in it, I'm trying to cover the big ones, the big budget ones that everybody knows about, that you see on every collection poster that has every single character on it. And we're going to dive in today and we're going to talk about these. Without further ado, I have 13 of these franchises that I am going to rank. Funny enough, lucky number 13. So let's jump in right now and discuss these, and I'll break down and tell you guys why they rank where they are. So coming in at dead last is going to be the Hellraiser franchise. And this is really funny because I genuinely think the first two Hellraiser films are fantastic, but they progressively get worse and worse and worse as the franchise goes on, almost unwatchable at a particular point where you're just kind of like, why did they continue making these? Like late in the franchise, they start to look like they're just made for TV movies. The performances just got worse and worse as the movies went on. And I don't have much more to say about this because they're genuinely just so unremarkable. But the first two films are genuinely interesting and 100% worth your time. It's just as a franchise, it's not good. They could have left it to the first two films and it would have been fine. Coming in at number 12 is the Paranormal Activity franchise. I actually did an entire ranked list about this franchise, and I'm a big found footage guy. And I actually genuinely love Paranormal Activity 3. I think it's a very good found footage movie, but I think existing as a franchise, there's so many movies in this that just don't provide anything interesting or new to the genre. I feel like even at the time period they came out in, like Blair Witch really kind of set off the found footage genre, and then there's other subsequent movies that were made around it. And this really, I feel like, popularized the genre, but it just doesn't do anything all that unique and interesting. When I watched the first Paranormal Activity again, it took everything in me just to get through it because I was so incredibly bored by most of it. And I think that's the problem with most of the franchise, is it's relatively boring. There are definitely highlights in each movie. There are moments I can appreciate, but that's why it's really low on the list for me. Coming in at number 11, and this is going to be probably my most unpopular opinion among all the people that comment on this video, is the Halloween franchise. I think this as a franchise is genuinely awful. I think there are two incredibly quality films in this franchise, and that is John Carpenter's original Halloween and Halloween 3. When it comes to the remainder of the franchise, I could not care less about most of the movies that exist. I think H2O is a really cool closure for Jamie Lee Curtis's character. I actually think in the new trilogy they released, I liked Halloween Ends. I think it very much parallels the ideas that John Carpenter established in the original Halloween more than any of the other films in the franchise. But like all of the movies that people seem to care a whole lot about, I just don't. I find most of them to be boring, especially Halloween 4. And I also think Michael Myers is not an interesting character. I think he's incredibly boring. I don't find him interesting. I love John Carpenter's idea that Michael Myers is just like pure and complete evil. There's really nothing more to him. He's just genuinely an awful human being who wants to commit horrible acts. And Halloween 3 is great because it has nothing to do with Michael Myers. And if it would have turned into an anthology series, I would love it a lot more. But most of these movies are incredibly stale and bland. I don't ever care about revisiting them. There's a couple of highlight moments similar to what I said about Paranormal Activity. but nothing about this series makes me want to go back and revisit it. If I watch these movies, I typically watch John Carpenter's original and Season of the Witch, and I don't really care about anything else. Coming in at number 10 is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre series, another series that should have never really been a series. Most of the movies in this franchise are really not good. I don't like Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. I really got that movie hyped up to me for a long time, and it's not as funny as people say. It's also a bloated mess, and I really don't care about any of the characters. The original TCM is incredible, one of the greatest horror movies ever made. The third movie is borderline unwatchable trash, but the movies that people don't like are the ones that I appreciate. I like the remake. I think it's a lot of fun and it's enjoyable. I like the one with Matthew McConaughey because it's really stupid and over the top and ridiculous. I thought 3D was a hilarious mess. And I think that, like, what's interesting about a lot of these franchises is people seem to hate when these directors take a risk and do something different with the franchise. And that's what happens in a lot of these movies, which is why I like it more than Halloween. But I still probably wouldn't revisit a lot of these because it's just not all that interesting as a franchise to me. Number 9 is Final Destination. I actually genuinely like this franchise. I just like what's up on the list a little bit more. I think the kills are a lot of fun. I think the characters are ridiculous and over the top. And I really like the settings that they establish for these movies, especially the third one that starts at the theme park. There's just a lot of really creative and interesting ideas when it comes to this franchise. It's 6 movies deep now. I feel like the reason why it sort of falls lower on the list for me is it's more of the same. When you get into this franchise, it's like you know exactly what you're getting into. It really delivers. The fourth film in the franchise is really the only one that is completely and totally unwatchable garbage. I would tell you, if you've never seen it before, just skip over it. It provides nothing to the lore of the franchise. It's not even really worth wasting your time on. But the rest of it, really enjoyable, but it's people getting killed in a variety of ways, and that's why it falls a little lower on the list. Coming in at number 8 is Saw. What I like about Final Destination, I like a little bit more about the Saw franchise, but similarly to what I said about Final Destination, it's more of the same. It's people in these traps getting killed off one by one. I do love that Saw feels like a heightened horror soap opera. Like, the plot twists that happen in these movies are the most silly, ridiculous, over-the-top, dumb schlock that you could possibly imagine, but that's what makes it so entertaining. They're genuinely, in the original Saw franchise, before they started doing like Jigsaw and all that other stuff, there really isn't one in the franchise that I don't enjoy watching. Like, there's some that are to lesser quality than others, but they're schlock. They're ridiculous, they're fun, they're gory, they have really fun performances. I would watch one of these a year for the remainder of time if they made them. Coming in at number 7 is the Conjuring series and all of the little offshoot movies they made. There are some weak moments in this franchise for certain, but there are very high moments in this franchise as well. There's a lot that I genuinely appreciate about the world and the lore. I always enjoy going back into these movies and appreciating these characters. I think that they're a lot of fun. Like I said, there are definitely weaker moments in the franchise, ones that I don't think are necessarily as strong. But I do think that it's an enjoyable world that I always enjoy getting myself back into. Coming in at number 6 is the Friday the 13th franchise. This is a series that is very much more of the same. Kids going to a summer camp, getting killed off one by this big giant man in a hockey mask. But what I like about these movies is they have a very distinct personality and tone. They are ridiculous, they are funny, they are over the top. There's only a couple in this franchise that I really cannot stand. I hate the remake. I think it's miserable. I think that Jason Goes to Hell is barely a movie. I cannot stand it. And Jason Takes Manhattan is like, meh. I really don't like it at all. But those first 7 films in the Friday the 13th franchise are all genuinely strong and fun to me personally. I have a blast watching these movies because I know exactly what I'm getting into every time I watch them. And I think Jason's a fun villain. His lore and his backstory is very simple, but I think he's menacing and he's frightening and he's what you want in a horror movie icon. And more than Halloween, where they just want to get deeper into the lore to the point where Michael Myers is like controlled by a witch's cult, like stupid shit. I hate that franchise. But Friday the 13th, it's fun. It understand what it wants to be, and I appreciate it for what it is. And at number 5 is the Alien franchise. I enjoy all of the movies in this franchise to varying degrees. The first Alien, in my opinion, is a perfect movie. I don't think there's anything I would do different about it. Aliens has its fun moments. I don't really like it as much as a lot of people do. Alien 3, I actually think is better than Aliens if you watch the assembly cut, because it has a darker tone, feels more paralleled to the original film. Alien Resurrection is a hot mess. But like, I enjoyed Prometheus. I think some of the subsequent sequels are a lot of fun. The most recent Alien movie isn't the greatest, but there's something about the xenomorph, the creature design, the world. I love science fiction. I just think that they're a fun series of films to watch, and I think that there's something of value in each one of these movies, even in the ones that I don't appreciate as much. Coming in at number 4 is the Scream series. I think this is one of the most consistent series that I'm talking about today. I feel like every movie, accomplishes what it sets out to do in varying degrees. I know people really hate the third movie. I don't think it's as bad as people say that it is. I would argue that it's down there with the fifth film as my least favorite, but there's something I enjoy about each and every one of these. I really like the cast of the movies. I really like, the idea that there's multiple killers normally. I think the way that it sort of plays with you and kind of shifts blame on people, and you're constantly guessing who the villain could be, is what makes it so much fun. Wes Craven really saved horror with Scream in the 90s. It was dying. A lot of the movies made in the 90s, horror film wise, were terrible. They made no money. And Wes Craven was like, here's what we love about horror again. And he nailed it. These movies are so much fun. I always appreciate them, and I'll watch them forever and ever. And at number 3 is A Nightmare on Elm Street. This used to be my number 1, but over the years, the two that are above it, I feel like are much more consistent in quality. And the Nightmare on Elm Street series has some of my favorite films. Nightmare on Elm Street 3 might be one of my favorite horror films of all time. Love the first, love the fourth movie. There's things about the second and fifth that I really appreciate. The sixth one is a hot mess, and I hate the remake. But the thing about this franchise is Robert Englund is what makes it special. I think Freddy Krueger is one of the most maniacal, evil villains ever created in any sort of horror property, which is why I appreciate it. I like the way that it juggles horror and comedy. I think they're just brilliantly executed films. Even the ones I don't like as much, I find something redeeming in, other than that god-awful remake, which I don't even attach to the original series. But yeah, really great franchise, incredible concept that I feel like still holds up after all these years, and I revisit these movies a lot. Coming in at number 2 is the Evil Dead franchise, which is now up to 5 films that I think are all great in varying degrees. There's not a single film in the Evil Dead franchise that I think is bad. I love that, the first Evil Dead, menacing, horrifying, just really well executed. Evil Dead 2 balances that with comedy very well. Army of Darkness jumps in to the, almost straightforward comedy adventure film. The Evil Dead remake is one of the most brutal horror films that I've ever watched in my life. Evil Dead Rise was a great installment in the franchise. Just excellent storytelling that really kind of plays with you psychologically, especially like your friends and family being possessed by these entities and kind of using things about you to manipulate you and get what it wants. I just think there's something really horrifying about that concept. I love this franchise so much. I think about it a lot, and it's just incredible. And coming in at number 1, Child's Play. I love this franchise. I've grown to love it more over the years. I think Don Mancini is a brilliant director, and I think the fact that he has not he hasn't directed all of these, but he's always worked on every single one outside of the remake. And I think that's why you get such a consistent quality where there's great horror moments. They're genuinely funny. I think Chucky as a character is hilarious. I think the characters added on later in the franchise are incredible. There's just something about these that are so much fun. I appreciate them each and every time I go back to watch them. I don't necessarily think Chucky is the scariest of the ones on this list, but I think he is the most fun. I think these movies are incredible, and I love them more every time I rewatch. So let me know your list down below. I'd love to know where you rank these, where you think they line up. I'm sure I probably missed somebody's favorite franchise, but like I said, trying to cover the biggest ones. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.